Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the bridge vibrating through her bones like a distant storm. The view screen flickered with the cold expanse of the Orion Arm, stars pinpricking the void where the diplomatic shuttle had vanished 3 hours ago. Her crew, 3 souls she'd handpicked for their unyielding grit, moved with quiet efficiency around her. Lieutenant Marco Reyes, her tactical officer, hunched over his console, fingers dancing across holographic displays. Beside him, Dr. Aisha Khalid monitored sensor feeds, her dark eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. And at the helm, Ensign Liam Chin steered the UNSS Vanguard with the steady hand of someone who'd outflown asteroid fields blindfolded. "Any sign of the shuttle, Doc?" Elena asked, her voice cutting through the low murmur of machinery. She kept her tone even, but the knot in her stomach twisted tighter. The Galactic Council had summoned Earth's delegation for what they called a routine accord review, but rumors from fringe colonies whispered of unrest, old treaties fraying like worn sails. Aisha glanced up, her fingers pausing on the scanner. "Nothing yet, Captain. Last ping placed them entering the neutral zone near Epsilon Eridani. Could be interference from the nebula, but—" She trailed off, exchanging a look with Marco. The nebula's glow painted the bridge in ethereal blues, a swirling veil that hid more than it revealed. Marco straightened, his broad shoulders rolling back. Or it could be deliberate jamming. The Council's been twitchy since we pushed for mining rights in the outer rims. If they're playing games, we're walking into a trap. His voice carried the rough edge of a man who'd lost friends to border skirmishes, but there was no fear in it, only the fire of someone ready to push back. Elena nodded, her mind racing through contingencies. The Vanguard wasn't a warship, just a diplomatic escort with enough teeth to fend off pirates, but against a Council fleet? They'd need more than luck. Helm, plot a course to their last known vector. Maximum sustainable speed. We don't wait for invitations anymore. Liam's hands flew over the controls, the ship shuddering as engines thrummed to life. "Aye, Captain. EDA 2 hours. But if they're gone..." He let the words hang, his youthful face set in determination. At 24 he was the youngest, but his quick thinking had saved them from a micrometeor storm last tour. The bridge fell into focused silence, broken only by the soft beeps of alerts. Elena leaned forward, staring at the starfield. Earth had joined the Council a decade ago, trading tech and resources for a seat at the table. But the accord was clear: no interference in sovereign claims. If the Council had broken it, ambushed their own shuttle, then the illusion of galactic unity shattered. And Elena's crew would be the first to prove humanity's response wouldn't be whispers in the dark. As the Vanguard surged forward, a faint signal blinked on Aisha's screen, a distorted distress call, looping in fragmented bursts. "Captain, I've got something. It's the shuttle's transponder, but it's weak. Coordinates match a derelict station in the nebula's edge." Marco's eyes narrowed. "Derelict? That's no coincidence. Could be an ambush site." Elena's jaw tightened. The plan was simple: hail the Council, demand answers. But instinct screamed otherwise. "Arm point defenses. We're going in hot but quiet. No transmissions until we see what's waiting." The ship dove into the nebula's fringes, tendrils of gas curling around the hull like ghostly fingers. Tension coiled in the air, thick as the ionized haze outside. Elena felt the weight of command settle heavier, her people counting on her, Earth counting on them. Whatever lay ahead, they'd face it together, wits sharp and resolve unbroken. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the bridge vibrating through her bones like a distant storm. The holographic display flickered before her, casting blue shadows across the faces of her crew. Lieutenant Marcus Hale, ever the cautious one, leaned over the console, his fingers dancing across the controls with precise, measured taps. Beside him, Engineer Kira Voss wiped sweat from her brow, her witty retort dying on her lips as the latest scan results painted a grim picture. "They're not just probing, Captain," Marcus said, his voice steady but laced with the weight of inevitability. "That Council frigate is locking weapons. If we don't respond to their hail, they'll classify us as hostile." Elena nodded, her jaw set. The accord had been clear: no human vessels within the outer rim without invitation. But desperation didn't bow to treaties. Earth's resources were stretched thin after the mining colony collapse, and this asteroid field held the rare isotopes they needed to keep the lights on back home. She glanced at Kira, who was already rerouting power to the shields, her hands a blur. "Open the channel," Elena ordered. "Let's see what illusions they're clinging to this time." The view screen shimmered, resolving into the stern visage of Ambassador Thaler, his elongated alien features twisted in feigned outrage. The Vexery counselor floated in zero-G, his robes billowing like spectral wings. "Human vessel, you trespass on sacred neutral space. The accord is broken by your insolence. Power down and prepare for boarding." Elena's response was calm, her brave facade hiding the knot in her gut. "Ambassador, we're on a salvage op. No harm, no foul. Earth's not looking for a fight, just what's rightfully ours from the debris." Thaler's eyes narrowed, slits of glowing amber. "Right? Your kind forfeited such claims when you defied the quota limits. The Council enforces order. Surrender or face the consequences." Kira muttered under her breath, just loud enough for Elena to hear. "Order my ass. They're hoarding the good stuff while we scrape by." Marcus shot her a warning glance, but Elena allowed a small smile. "Consequences, Thaler? We've danced this dance before. Call off your frigate and we'll discuss terms." The line went dead, static hissing like laughter. Alarms blared as the frigate unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts, streaking toward the hull. Elena's ship, the Resilience, shuddered under the impacts, sparks erupting from a nearby panel. "Shields at 60%. Kira shouted, slamming a fist on her console to override the failing emitters. "That early plan to slip through quietly? Yeah, it's backfired spectacularly." Elena unstrapped herself, floating toward the tactical station. "Marcus, evasive maneuvers. Kira, get me auxiliary power to the engines. We're not surrendering to illusions of superiority." The ship lurched as Marcus plotted a desperate weave through the asteroid field, jagged rocks tumbling past like silent witnesses. A bolt grazed the wing, shearing off a sensor array in a burst of molten debris. Elena watched the damage report scroll by, comms partially fried, life support straining. The cost was already mounting and they hadn't even fired back. In the dim glow of the emergency lights, Kira patched in a makeshift fix, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Captain, if we boost the gravitics we can slingshot around that big rock. Buy us time to hail reinforcements from the colony outpost." "Do it," Elena said, her mind racing. The Council's fleet was vast, their tech unmatched in raw power. But humans had grit, the kind that turns scraps into salvation. As the Resilience hurtled toward the looming asteroid, Elena felt the tension coil tighter. One wrong move, and the illusion of Earth's defiance would shatter, for good. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair as the Endeavor's bridge shuddered under another volley of plasma fire. The view screen flickered, showing the jagged silhouettes of the Krell battlecruisers closing in like predators scenting blood. Her crew, 12 souls handpicked for their grit, moved with the quiet efficiency of people who'd stared down worse odds. Beside her, Lieutenant Raj Patel, the ship's wiry engineer with a perpetual smirk that hid his calculating mind, punched commands into the console. "Shields at 40%, Cap. Those bastards are packing more punch than intel suggested." Elena nodded, her dark eyes scanning the tactical display. The accord had been Earth's fragile peace with the Galactic Council, a treaty forged in the fires of first contact. But 3 days ago the Krell delegation had shattered it, declaring human expansion a provocation, and blockading the outer colonies. Now the Endeavor was the only UN vessel close enough to respond, carrying a cargo of prototype terraforming drones that could tip the balance in the resource wars. Losing them meant dooming the Mars outpost to slow starvation. "Options?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "No panic. Panic got you killed." Raj leaned back, rubbing his stubbled chin. "We can't outgun them, 3-1, and their hulls laugh at our lasers. But I've got an idea. Remember those drones? We repurpose the gravitic emitters. Turn them into a makeshift minefield. Lure 'em in, then boom. Across the bridge Dr. Mira Chin, the team's xenobiologist and Elena's old academy rival turned reluctant ally, shot him a skeptical glance from her station. Myra's sharp features were drawn tight, her cautious nature warring with the adrenaline. That's reckless, Raj. The emitters aren't weapons. One misfire and we vent the cargo bay, along with half our atmosphere. Elena waited. The Krell ships loomed larger now, their boarding pods detaching like spores. Time was bleeding out. Raj, make it happen. Mira, monitor the bioscans. If they breach, I want to know what we're facing. She hit the intercom. All hands, battle stations. We're not dying out here without a fight. Raj bolted for the engineering deck, toolkit clanging against his thigh. The ship groaned as he descended the ladder, sparks flying from a ruptured conduit. In the dim glow of the cargo hold, the drones waited, sleek orbs humming with untapped potential, each the size of a fighter jet. He cracked open the first one's panel, fingers flying over the wiring. Human ingenuity, he thought, always the wild card. The Krell thought us primitives, bound by their accords. But we jury-rigged nukes from scrap in the old wars. This was child's play. Back on the bridge, alarms wailed. A Krell pod latched onto the hull with a metallic screech. Elena drew her sidearm, a compact railgun that felt heavy in her palm. Boarders incoming, deck 4. Mira, seal those bulkheads. Myra's hands trembled slightly as she complied, her mind racing through the Council's propaganda. Humans as reckless apes, unfit for the stars. But she'd seen Elena's resolve in simulations, the way she turned doubt into action. Sealed. But they're cutting through, plasma torches. 82 minutes. Elena stood, signaling 2 security ensigns. With me. They moved like shadows through the corridors, the ship's pulse thrumming underfoot. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone. As they rounded the corner, the bulkhead glowed red-hot, then burst inward. Krell warriors poured through, tall, chitin-armored brutes with multifaceted eyes and claws that sparked against the metal deck. The first one lunged, mandibles clacking. Elena fired, the railgun's slug punching through its carapace in a spray of ichor. It crumpled, but 2 more flanked her. One ensign went down screaming, claws raking his suit. Elena rolled, coming up firing, her breath sharp and controlled. Brave, not foolish, that was her creed. From engineering, Raj's voice crackled over comms. Emitters online. Releasing drones now. Outside, the orbs deployed in a shimmering cloud, their gravitic fields warping space like invisible nets. The lead Krell cruiser plowed into the trap, engines flaring as artificial gravity crushed its forward bays. Alarms blared across the enemy fleet. They veered, but too late. One pod detonated mid-flight, debris pinging off the Endeavor's hull. The boarding party faltered, their comms filling with frantic hisses. Elena pressed the advantage, dropping another warrior. Myra's voice cut in, they're retreating, Cap. But, scans show reinforcements inbound, Council enforcers, heavy class. Elena wiped sweat from her brow, helping the surviving ensign to his feet. The cost was already tallied. 1 dead, hull breaches venting precious air. They'd bought time, but the illusion of human weakness was cracking, and the Council wouldn't forgive that. As the ship limped away from the debris field, Elena allowed herself a grim smile. Earth had played their hand. Now the real game began. Elena gripped the armrest of the shuttle's worn seat, her knuckles whitening as the vessel shuddered through the asteroid field's edge. The NAV console blinked erratically, a remnant of the pulse bomb the Council's interceptors had lobbed at them 2 jumps back. Jax hunched over the engineering panel, his fingers dancing across the holographic keys, sweat beading on his forehead despite the recycled air's chill. Got it? He muttered, voice tight but laced with that familiar spark of defiance. Rerouted the auxiliary power to shields. We're ghosts for another hour, maybe? Mira, strapped in across from Elena, shot him a sidelong glance, her diplomat's poise cracking just enough to show the worry lines etching deeper around her eyes. An hour? That's cutting it close. If their scanners pick us up before we reach the relay station, we're done. The Accord's already in shreds, this could ignite the whole sector. Elena nodded, her jaw set. She wasn't one for speeches, but the weight of command pressed on her like the gravity well they were skirting. The Council had broken the treaty first, blockading human colonies under the guise of resource audits, starving outposts of supplies while their sleek dreadnoughts loomed in the void. Earth couldn't match their fleet numbers, but Elena's team had a shot at the truth, smuggling data from the hidden relay that logged every violation. One burst transmission to the neutral worlds, and the illusion of Council invincibility shattered. The shuttle lurched as a micrometeor clipped the hull, sparks flying from a conduit. Jax cursed under his breath, patching it with a jury-rigged sealant. These rocks are thicker than I thought. Plan B it is, manual piloting through the narrow channel. Elena's hand hovered over the controls, but she hesitated. Manual meant exposing them, no auto-evasion. You sure? Last time we went off-script, we nearly vented the cargo. Jax grinned, though it didn't reach his eyes. Nearly's better than the Council's brig. Trust the human touch. Mira leaned forward, her voice a measured whisper. Captain, the data core's secure, but if we lose the shuttle, it's all for nothing. The Council's betting will fold like the other fringe worlds. We can't afford a mistake. The field ahead narrowed, jagged silhouettes blotting the stars like teeth in a cosmic maw. Elena took a breath, fingers closing on the yoke. The engines hummed to life, propelling them into the gap. Alarms wailed almost immediately, a proximity warning, false or not, it didn't matter. She banked hard, the shuttle scraping against an unseen boulder, metal groaning in protest. Too tight. Jax yelled, slamming an override. The shields flickered, draining fast. From the viewport, a glint caught Elena's eye, not rock but alloy. Council's probe drone, sleek and silent, drifting into their path like a predator sensing blood. It wasn't scanning, it was locking on. Evade! Mira shouted, unstrapping instinctively. Elena yanked the controls, but the shuttle spun wild, caught in a debris eddy. The drone fired a tether beam, latching onto their flank with a magnetic thud. Systems seized, lights dimming as it siphoned power. Jax dove for the manual disconnect, wrench in hand. I've got this, keep her steady. The shuttle bucked, tearing free with a screech, but not before the drone's beacon activated. A flare lit the void behind them, signaling their position to every hunter in range. Elena's plan, slip in quiet, extract the relay logs, had backfired spectacularly. Now the Council's illusion held firm, and their gamble hung by a thread. Myra's face paled as the first interceptor signatures bloomed on the scanner. They're coming. Fast. Elena straightened, resolve hardening. Then we make them chase. Jack's weapons hot. Mira, prep the core for emergency dump. We're not going down without a fight. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the shuttle's engines vibrating through her bones like a distant earthquake. The view screen flickered with static as they skimmed the asteroid field's edge, jagged rocks tumbling lazily in the void. Beside her, Dr. Liam Chin hunched over his makeshift console, fingers dancing across holographic displays that glowed with erratic data streams. The signal's stabilizing, he muttered, his voice tight with the caution of a man who'd seen too many simulations fail in real space. Across from them, Sergeant Kira Novak scanned the tactical overlay, her eyes sharp, betraying the wit she usually masked with gruff efficiency. If that Council frigate spots us now, we're Swiss cheese, she said, not looking up. The plan had been simple on paper. Slip through the debris left from the Accord's shattered mining outposts, plant the disruptor beacon on the Council's relay station, and vanish before their patrols tightened. But nothing stayed simple when the aliens' illusion of unchallenged dominance started cracking. Elena's team had already lost their initial approach vector to a sensor sweep. Liam's clever reroute through the field had bought them time, but the asteroid collisions were wearing on the shields. A low groan echoed through the hull as another rock clipped the port side, sparks dancing across the bulkhead. Shields at 60%, Kira reported, her tone steady but edged with the grit that had earned her the nickname Iron Novak back on Earth. She adjusted the thrusters with a flick, nudging them clear of a spinning boulder the size of a HAB module. Elena nodded, her mind racing through contingencies. Elena Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the ship's engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with static, showing the debris field ahead, a graveyard of shattered hulls from the last skirmish with Council patrols. Her team had pushed this far into the restricted sector, chasing rumors of a hidden cache that could tip the balance. But now, with the fuel reserves dipping critically low, every decision felt like a gamble. Captain, Marcus Hale's voice crackled over the intercom from engineering, laced with that familiar edge of caution. The recyclers are at 80% efficiency. We can squeeze another day out of this, maybe two if we cut non-essentials. But if we hit that field wrong, we're done. Elena nodded to herself, eyes narrowing at the swirling wreckage. Marcus was the steady one, always calculating risks like they were equations to balance. She appreciated it even if his pessimism sometimes clashed with her drive. Understood. Kira, what's our window? Lieutenant Kira Santos leaned over the tactical console, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. Short-cropped hair framed a face etched with scars from too many close calls. Patrols are looping back in 15. If we thread the needle now, we might slip through. But that asteroid cluster's a mess. Magnetic interference could fry our sensors. The plan had seemed solid back at the jump point. Slip into the sector, grab the intel on the Council's hidden shipyards, and ghost out before they noticed. But the first probe had triggered an automated defense grid, scattering their drones and forcing a hard burn that guzzled fuel. Now, with the cache still a ghost on their scopes, doubt gnawed at the edges. Thread it, Elena said, her voice steady. Full evasive pattern delta. Marcus, divert power to shields. Kira, keep eyes on those patrols. The ship lurched as thrusters fired, plunging into the debris. Chunks of metal tumbled past, glinting under the distant starlight. Elena felt the pull in her gut, the G-forces pressing her back. A sharp jolt rocked the bridge. Something had clipped them. Minor hull breach, deck 4, Kira reported, unflinching. Sealing it now. But the rail hit came seconds later. The sensors lit up like a fireworks display, false echoes bouncing off the wreckage. Elena's heart sank as the view screen cleared just enough to reveal the truth. Not debris but a cloaked minefield, remnants of an old war the Council had buried. Their probe had barely scratched it, now they were committed. Captain, we've tripped something, Marcus called, his tone urgent but controlled. Energy signatures spiking. Those aren't patrols. It's a sleeper drone swarm. Elena swore under her breath. The Accord had promised neutral zones, but the Council had laced this sector with forgotten traps, breaking every clause in spirit if not letter. Her ingenuity had gotten them here, repurposing salvaged alien tech to mask their signature, but now it was backfiring spectacularly. Evade, she barked. The ship twisted, engines whining in protest. Drones detached from the shadows, sleek predators closing in with precision fire. One laser grazed their flank, shearing off a sensor array in a burst of sparks. Kira fired back, her shots precise, taking down two with a satisfying pop of explosions. Got him, but more incoming. We need to punch through or we're sitting ducks. Marcus's voice cut in again. Fuel's dropping fast. If we don't clear this in the next 5, we're dead in the water. Elena's mind raced, piecing together fragments from briefings. The drones were old, programmed for bulk freighters, not nimble scouts like theirs. Kira, matched their pattern, mirror the swarm's vectors. Make us look like one of them. Kira glanced up, a flicker of respect in her eyes. Risky. If they sink, do it. Elena's fingers tightened on the controls, overriding the autopilot. The ship rolled, aligning with the drone's flow. For a heartbeat, the firing stopped. They were ghosts in the machine blending into the hunt. But the illusion shattered as a larger shadow emerged from the field, a Council interceptor roused by the disturbance. Its weapons powered up, locking on with a cold beep that echoed through the bridge. They're on to us, Marcus said, his caution turning to grim resolve. Shields at half. We can't outrun it. Elena stared at the incoming vessel, the weight of the mission pressing down. The cache was close. Scans flickered with promise just beyond, but this chase would burn them out. One wrong move, and Earth's fragile counteroffensive ended here, in a forgotten corner of space. She keyed the comms. All hands brace for adaptive burn. We're not breaking yet. The engines roared, propelling them toward the heart of the storm, where triumph or ruin waited in equal measure. Captain Alara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the Odyssey's engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with the debris field ahead, a graveyard of shattered hulls from the Council's ambush. Her crew, 12 souls, all that remained after the initial strike, moved with quiet efficiency, rerouting power from non-essentials to the forward shields. Jax, her wiry engineer with a perpetual grease streak on his cheek, wiped sweat from his brow and shot her a nod from the auxiliary console. Shields at 60%, Cap. That ion storm's playing hell with the emitters, but I can jury-rig a bypass if we shave off some speed. Ilara's jaw tightened. Speed was their edge. The Council frigates were closing in, their sleek forms cutting through the void like predators scenting blood. She remembered the Accord's fine print, the one the diplomats had glossed over. Humanity's allied status meant no independent fleet actions. But when the Council had glassed New Harmony, that paper treaty burned to ash. Now they hunted her ship to make an example. Negative on the speed cut, she said, voice steady despite the knot in her gut. We're threading this needle, Jax. Lena, what's the scan say on the path? Lieutenant Lena Torres, ever the cautious one, leaned into her station, her dark eyes narrowing at the holographic display. A former xenolinguist turned tactical officer, she saw patterns where others saw chaos. Tight squeeze, sir. The field's dense, old war relics from the Crag War. But there's a corridor maybe 200 meters wide. If we angle 15 degrees port, we might slip through without scraping. The bridge fell silent, save for the soft beeps of consoles. Ilara felt the weight of their stares. They weren't soldiers by trade. Most were colonists pulled into this fight when the Odyssey became the last evac shuttle off a burning world. But grit ran deep in human veins, forged in centuries of scraping by on a hostile rock called Earth. Ilara's plan hinged on this. Lure them into the field where their vaunted sensors would glitch amid the interference. But as they dove deeper, a massive derelict hulk blocked the corridor. A gutted cruiser, its spine cracked like a broken bone. Lena's voice cracked with urgency. No way around without exposing us, sir. We hit it, we're done. Ilara's mind raced. Reverse? No, they'd be picked off. Ram it? Suicide. Then Jax's voice cut through. Cap, the old girl's got docking clamps still active? I can hack a link, use her as a shield, slingshot us out the other side. Risky. The derelict systems were ancient, likely fried. But inaction meant capture, and the Council didn't take prisoners from upstart primitives. Ilara met his eyes, saw the trust there. Do it. Lena, cover fire on that lead ship. Making Daisy. Thrusters flared. The Odyssey closed with the wreck, grapples extending like desperate fingers. A jolt rocked them as they latched, the old hull groaning in protest. Jax hooped as his hack took hold, firing auxiliary thrusters on the derelict. It swung ponderously, pulling them into a wide arc. Marcus hunched over the console, his fingers dancing across the holographic display, sweat beading on his forehead despite the chill from the overloaded vents. They're closing the net, she said, voice steady but edged with the grit of someone who'd stared down worse. The view screen showed the Armada, sleek Vexery cruisers, their hulls like polished obsidian, forming a tightening sphere around the battered human ship. The Council's enforcers, once content to dictate terms from afar, now hunted with the ferocity of cornered predators. Marcus didn't look up. Shields at 20%. That last pulse from their disruptor fried the relays. If we divert power to weapons, we're blind in 5 minutes. His words came quick, laced with that dry wit that kept them sane. Unless you fancy playing chicken with a fleet of space whales. She shot him a glance, the corner of her mouth twitching despite the knot in her gut. Options hail. We didn't come this far to fold. The Aurora had been a salvage rig once, retrofitted in secret shipyards on Luna's far side. No match for the Council's tech on paper, but humans didn't fight on paper. They'd slipped through the blockade by jury-rigging a false transponder, mimicking a Vexery supply drone. It had worked, until the Council sniffed out the Accord's breach and unleashed their hounds. A soft chime echoed from the comm station. Lieutenant Kira Voss, the third in their tight-knit trio, leaned forward, her cautious eyes narrowing at the incoming signal. Kira, always the one to double-check readings, had spotted the flaw in the Vexery formation earlier, a gap in their sensor web born of arrogance. Incoming hail from the lead cruiser. Say they've got our codes cracked. Elena's jaw tightened. The codes. Stolen human encryption twisted into a noose. If the Vexery broadcasted that, every resistance cell on the frontier would light up like a supernova. Ignore it. Marcus, can we spoof their disruptor? Turn their own weapon back on them? He paused, rubbing his chin, the stubble rasping under his fingers. The plan had been elegant. Infiltrate the Council's relay station, plant a virus to expose their fabricated peace broadcasts, shatter the illusion that kept neutral worlds in line. But the station was a fortress, and their infiltration team, down to just the three of them after a brutal ambush, had barely escaped with partial data. Now, cornered in the nebula's edge, that data was their only leverage. Possible, Marcus said, his voice gaining speed as ideas sparked. Their disruptor pulses on a fractal frequency. If I sync our emitters to echo it back, amplified through the nebulous plasma, might create a feedback loop. Fry their sensors, buy us a window. He tapped a sequence, the console flickering in protest. Sparks jumped from a nearby panel, and he cursed under his breath. Kira shook her head, her fingers hovering over the evasion controls. Risky. The nebula's unstable. One wrong bounce, and we detonate half the gas cloud. Takes us with it. Her caution wasn't fear, it was the voice of someone who'd lost a squad to overconfidence. But Elena saw the flicker in her eyes, the same fire that had driven her to join the Aurora when the Council raised her colony. Do it, Elena decided, rising to her feet. The ship groaned as another disruptor wave rippled through space, shaking the deck like a distant earthquake. Kira plot a course through the densest plasma field. Keep us nimble. Marcus, make it sing. The engineer grinned, a flash of teeth in the dim light. Aye, Captain. Time to give the whales a headache. As the Aurora banked hard, weaving through swirling clouds of ionized gas that painted the void in electric blues and violets, Marcus fed the code into the system. The ship shuddered, engines straining against the gravitational eddies. On the view screen, the Vexery formation tightened, their weapons priming with a predatory glow. The first echo hit like a thunderclap. The disruptor pulse, reflected and magnified, slammed back into the lead cruiser. Alarms blared across the fleet as sensors overloaded, ships veering wildly to avoid phantom collisions. But the feedback loop was volatile. A secondary surge tore through the Aurora's hull, venting atmosphere from the lower decks. Elena braced as the lights dimmed, the acrid smell of burning circuits filling the air. Direct hit on 3 of them, Kira reported, her voice tight. But we're venting, life support dropping fast. Marcus slammed a fist on the console. Loops collapsing. They've adapted already. Damn their AI. Elena met their eyes, the weight of the moment settling like dust after a blast. The data crystal burned in her pocket, proof of the Council's lies. Fabricated atrocities pinned on Earth, worlds starved to enforce compliance. Broadcasting it now meant sacrificing the ship, but holding back doomed the fight. Kira, open a wideband channel. All frequencies. Marcus, prep the burst transmission. As the Vexery regrouped, their hulls scarred but closing in, Elena stepped to the comms. Her voice, calm and unyielding, cut through the static. This is Captain Elena Ruiz of the Free Worlds. The Council broke the accord. Hear the truth. The transmission fired, the crystal's data flooding the ether, images of rigged elections, poison relief ships, the human grit that Captain Elias Thorne gripped the armrest of the command chair, his knuckles whitening as the Vanguard's hull groaned under the strain of evasive maneuvers. The view screen flickered with the debris field ahead, a graveyard of shattered alien frigates, courtesy of their ragtag fleet's last desperate push. Beside him, Engineer Miravas wiped sweat from her brow, her fingers dancing over the jury-rigged console. Shields at 30%, she muttered, her voice steady despite the chaos. One more hit from those plasma lances and we're venting atmosphere. Across the bridge, Lieutenant Kara Ruiz paced like a caged predator, her marine fatigues torn from the boarding action 2 hours back. She'd led the strike on the Council's auxiliary cruiser, pulling out their encryption keys by sheer grit and a stolen plasma cutter. They think we're done, she growled, eyes locked on the tactical display where the Council's flagship loomed, a behemoth of iridescent alloy bristling with weapons. But we've got their codes now. Time to make them eat their own illusion. Elias nodded, his mind racing through the plan they'd cobbled together in the dim glow of the engineering bay. The Council had broken the accord years ago, blockading human colonies and starving them of dilithium for warp drives. Earth's response? A fleet of refitted freighters, armed with human ingenuity, railguns that punched through shields like paper, drones swarming like angry hornets. But the cost was mounting. 3 ships lost already, crews venting into the void. No glory here, just survival. Route the codes through the array, Elias ordered, leaning forward. Myra's hands blurred, splicing the alien signals into their own comms burst. The vanguard shuddered as a lance skimmed their flank, sparks erupting from a bulkhead. Kara braced against the wall, her face set in that fierce determination that had kept them alive through a dozen skirmishes. On the view screen, the Council's fleet hesitated, their formation fracturing as false orders flooded their networks. Commands to stand down, to redirect fire inward. Elias watched a destroyer turn on its neighbor, turrets blooming with accidental fire. "It's working," he breathed, a grim smile cracking his fatigue-lined face. But the flagship didn't waver. Its captain, some high-end mighty Zarathian, must have seen through the ruse. Alarms blared. "Incoming salvo," Mira shouted. "Evasive pattern Delta." Kara was already at the weapons station, overriding safeties. "Firing all rails, now." The ship bucked as slugs accelerated to relativistic speeds, slamming into the flagship's forward shields. Cracks spiderwebbed across the energy field, a brief flare of blue lightning. Elias hit the comms. "All ships converge on the breach. We've got one shot." His voice carried the weight of command, laced with the unspoken fear that this might be their last. The bridge filled with the chatter of responses. Captain Hale from the Relentless, her tone wry. "About time we cracked their shell. For Earth." As the fleet closed in, Elias felt the pull of exhaustion, the ache of friends lost in earlier volleys. The Zarathians' illusion of dominance was crumbling, but victory demanded more than tricks. It demanded they press the advantage no matter the scars it left. The vanguard dove toward the fray, engines screaming, carrying them into the heart of the storm. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair, the hum of the bridge vibrating through her bones like a second heartbeat. The view screen flickered with the debris field ahead, twisted remnants of the Council's flagship, silent now after the cascade failure they'd engineered. Her team had done it. A precise overload of the illusion generators, the tech the aliens relied on to project their unassailable might. No more holograms of invincible fleets, just cold, hard reality. "Status on the secondary ships?" she asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline crash. Lieutenant Rao, ever the cautious one, tapped his console. "They're scattering, Captain. Our decoys held, bought us the window we needed. But the Accord's enforcers are inbound. 5 minutes out." Elena nodded, glancing at Dr. Hale, the wiry engineer whose quick thinking had repurposed their salvage drones into the perfect delivery system. He wiped sweat from his brow, his witty grin absent for once. "We bought time, not victory. If they regroup." "They won't," she cut in, not sharply but with the grit that had carried them this far. The Council had shattered the Accord first, imposing sanctions that starved colonies, illusions masking their greed as benevolence. Earth hadn't declared war, they'd exposed the lie. One clever hack at a time. The bridge door hissed open, and Sergeant Kira Voss strode in, her armor scuffed from boarding the derelict outpost. Brave to a fault, she'd led the ground team through booby-trapped corridors, securing the final data core. "Captain, the artifact's secure. But the cost." Her eyes, usually fierce, held a shadow. 2 of their squad hadn't made it back, real losses, not simulated ones. Elena rose, placing a hand on Voss's shoulder. "We honor them by finishing this." She turned to the crew. "Helm, plot course for the neutral relay. Transmit the full expose, every illusion, every broken promise. Let the galaxy see." As the ship lurched into motion, alarms blared softly, pursuers closing. Rao's fingers flew. "Countermeasures ready. But they'll hit hard." Hale leaned forward. "One more trick. Reroute power to the shields, make us look like a ghost ship. Their sensors will glitch on the remnants." Elena weighed it, the risk of exposure against the gain. "Do it." Tension coiled in the air, broken only by the ship's groans as they wove through the wreckage. Short bursts of thrust, evasive spins that pressed them into seats. A missile streaked past, close enough to rattle the hull. Voss braced against the bulkhead. "They're not firing to kill. Testing us. Or buying time for their illusionists to spin this," Rao muttered. The relay beacon loomed, a skeletal station orbiting a gas giant's glow. Elena keyed the broadcast. Data streamed out, proof of the Council's deceptions, human ingenuity laid bare in code and courage. No speeches, just facts unyielding. Impact shuddered through the deck. Shields held, but sparks flew from a panel. Hale cursed, patching it manually. We're through. Transmission complete. Pursuit faltered as the first echoes rippled across comms. Outrage from fringe worlds, doubt in allied fleets. The Council's armada hesitated, their projected power fracturing like cheap glass. Elena exhaled, the bridge falling quiet save for the steady beep of systems normalizing. Voss slumped into a chair, helmet off, revealing fatigue-etched lines. What now? They won't forgive this. Nor should we forget, Elena said softly. The Accord was in tatters, but from the ruins something honest might rise. Earth had broken no laws, only illusions. Yet the stars felt heavier, the cost etched in empty seats and wary scans. As they jumped to the outer rim, the gas giant's storms painted the view screen in swirling amber. A new chapter, unscripted, awaited.